Hi guys, Raynal here. In 4 days, it will have been a year since I started my channel, so that's a little bit of an accomplishment. And in this year, I've never done a tier list for War of the Visions. The reason is simple. It's such a varying game. It depends on the matchup, it depends on the quest, it depends on so many things, where units can be good or bad. Even if they're top tier units, they're not always the best for a specific situation. But I feel like it's time to give it a go. I've been getting a couple requests for tier lists, so I will do my best. I'll set up some boundaries first, though. I will only be reviewing units that have EX jobs right now. I feel like if a unit does not have an EX job, they are not relevant in the current meta because they just can't really compete with units that do have them. And then I will not be talking about all the MR and lower rarity units because that would make way too many units. We already have more than 80 to cover today, and I want to keep this video as short as I can. So I'll be covering those that I think are the most impactful. And then finally, I'll be talking about units from a PvP perspective. The reason being, in a PvE setup, if your account is strong enough and your strategy is good enough, you can clear any quest with any unit you like. I think I've proven that times and times again by running Nightmare difficulty quests with MR or lower rarity units. And so there's really no point in rating units, in my opinion, based on their PvE performance, unless you have a starter account. So that's not what we'll be doing. We'll think of it in a PvP setup, and then auto PvP more than anything, but I will mention when a unit is used in manual PvP, and then I plan, if I have the free time, to do a separate tier list for manual PvP, because I feel like that's something where I have a different expertise that might be interesting. So let's begin. The first unit on our list is Normal Zazan. He's an interesting guy. I think he sees a lot of play in cost-restricted play because he has a cost 20. He's the only unit with a cost 20. So it's actually worth it leveling him if you love those limited guild battles and etc. because sometimes it allows you to run him alongside 2 cost 100 units, and that can be very good. Now, in manual PvP, he's actually great because he has a movement of 6 and Steel Heart. It's very hard for the auto to actually use that properly, so in auto, I feel like it's more of a niche build. Next up is Phoebe. Again, a unit that's really good in cost-restricted content because for 30 cost you have access to Quicken, Full Life, and good mobility. In manual play I would rate her good, but there's not a lot of cost-restricted content that's coming to us. If we had limited guild battle with limited cost every single month, I would rate her better, but right now it's really just a niche unit. If you have her, she's fantastic for these game modes, but she's not necessary. Silma is a bit of a similar case. When she was released, she was a powerhouse, but she was one of the first EX units, and she was handed out for free, so it was easier for players to get her. I feel like now there's so many good units that Silma doesn't really have a place to be. If you're running a Lightning team, who would you sit out for Silma? I don't think there's many cases where she's that great. She still has a role as a magic user that can boost your team a little bit. I'll rate her a niche, but she's definitely not a great unit. Then Shadowlinks, really great evasion unit. She can dodge around a lot. She's nearly as evady as a unit like to be. And when she got her EX job, it was her and to be that could evade very well, so she was really good. But now there's been other units released with even better evasion. I'm thinking of units like Catone getting her EX job, units like Starlet Elena, and etc. So I don't really see a case where you would run Shadowlinks anymore. I have to rate her as a nope, because yes, she's really fun and she's had her little bit of a time to shine, but now she's underwhelming compared to many other options. Then Seymour, very interesting guy. That guy hits like a truck. He has great mobility. He has the ability to charm. In manual play, he is a great unit. Maybe even in the best category. But for auto play, there's so many other options. Why would you ever run somebody like Seymour over, say, somebody like Cloud? I don't feel like there's much of a reason to, even if you're in a Fire Affinity team. So he's really more of a niche unit for auto, but a great manual unit. Moving on to Nasha. Now, I love playing Nasha. She's one of my favorite unit, but now that Engelbert has his EX job, and it's such a great one, there is literally no reason to use Nasha, ever. I feel like if you enjoy playing her and you want to, go ahead. She works fine as a tank. She's a very bulky frontline, but she's just not as good as the UR counterpart Engelbert, and the difference in cost is not that high since Engelbert is a cost 70. So unfortunately, Nasha takes the nope section. MR Mont, though, is a much different tank from Nasha because he has some decent offensive capabilities. He can decrease movement and then make sure enemies do not get to your team properly. Even in auto setups, I find that he's actually good, and most players should go ahead and EX him because it's easy to get the Mind Spheres for him. If you have the Blossoms, I think there's actually contexts where he can work in PvP. There are a lot of other Earth powerhouses, right? If you own Oberon and Noctis and etc., you're not going to run Mont. But considering how easy it is to get him and how strong he is for that ease, I think he's worth the good rating. Then Fina, she is great. I mean, some people might disagree with me, but I am in a top 60 or so guild, and I've been using Fina in guild battle non-stop alongside Elena and Kilfei, and she, from what I see, outperforms Jaiden quite often just because her AoE attacks also decreases accuracy, and that leads to some very interesting matchups. She also brings full life and a bunch of other stuff. I think she's a competitive unit, surprisingly enough. Then we have Chao. She is the unit with the fastest cast in the game. That's what she has, it's unique, and because of that, she will never be below a niche, because there will be contexts where you want a very fast quicken, and you need that to execute your strategy. In manual play, again, she would be a lot higher, because there are a lot of quicken-oriented strategies. I see less of them in autoplay, so I'll rate her as a niche. But keep in mind, nobody casts as fast as she does. Then we're on to the UR units. Everything we'll do from now on is UR, and UR Zazan is a pretty good example of a unit that's great. I mean, he has insane survivability, he has good affinity with the other Earth units. If you own him, you've probably used him a lot because he's just very hard to remove from the board, and either he's going to waste a lot of AP from an enemy team or a lot of turns, so even if he doesn't get to use a lot of AP refresh and deal a lot of damage, he is taking attacks away from the enemy team, and because of that, I think he's a great unit. Next up, Yuna. Yuna, I think, is only good at this point. The reason why Yuna still sees plays is because of how good light as an element is, but she herself as a unit is not incredibly good. She has really solid heals, she can provide somebody with re-raise and cast full life, so she's an enabler. The better the units alongside her are, the better she is. But initially, upon her EX release, she would one-shot everybody with her attacks. Now, I don't see this happen anymore. She also had Aeon Bond procs all the time because she was hard to take down. Now there's a lot of units that can one-punch her. She is not as competitive as she used to be. She has to go into my good setup, but not any higher than that. Yerma currently is a joke. Eventually we'll get the second mastery ability, and her limit break will also give her courage, which will change the entire dynamic around here. Right now though, I don't see any reason why anyone would run her, so she goes into my nope section, unfortunately. Xiza is in a similar spot. I love Xiza. When she was released, I would use her as one-punch Warrior of Light. When she got her EX job. But now she's not nearly as good. She doesn't have great survivability. Most teams are now spec'd to deal with evasion units because of how Startup Elena's everywhere, so she doesn't survive any good amount of time. And it's not like the damage she does is something nobody else can do. So I don't think there's any good reason to run her. Even in manual play, we used to see her with a lot for charm shenanigans, and she has been replaced. So unfortunately, Xiza's out. Then Warrior of Light. I think Warrior of Light is still a fantastic tank. I am more afraid to fight Warrior of Light than I am to fight Engelbert, because Warrior of Light brings the damage. He just comes in and hits you, and if you give him a respite and a time to just heal back up, he will be just so annoying, where he gets back to full HP, and he's like, you gotta start over, bud. So I personally rate him very highly as a tank. I'll put him in the great section. But maybe I'll rate all the tanks rather highly, because the way they change other units' AI is extremely important, in my opinion. Next up is Vinera. I think Vinera was fantastic for a long time. She's kind of a bruisey evasion unit, which is very interesting. The thing is, she's completely outperformed by a unit like Starlit Elena, who also builds chains and has a lot of other utility. Vinera does not deal with barriers. All she does is decrease defense and deals single hit damage. She's got some good AoE with the dual gunner sub job, but frankly, I don't see many scenarios where you would want to run her over somebody else. Even Dark Evasion is not so much of a played archetype right now. So I would say, do you want to invest in Vinera right now? No. If you do have her though, she can be good depending on how you use her. But she's definitely not a unit I think players should think about investing in. So I'll put her in niche, unfortunately. Then Winter version Vinera is a whole different thing because the Earth game right now is still really good. Now we just got Joom, maybe Earth is going to be shut down in the near future, but when I see a Winter Vinera, I'm generally quite afraid. This girl typically runs with 40 plus defense, 8,000 plus HP, and hits really hard, but I think it's hard to make her work because she needs a proper setup. If she doesn't have the right teammates or the right vision cards, she will not be that great. So because of how hard it is to make her work and the fact that some of her partners are time limited and vision cards are time limited to make her work, I'll put her in niche, but she definitely performs very well in that niche. Now, Winter Victora. Similar case. I think in the right setup, she is a fantastic unit, but being a ranged unit, it's a lot easier to make her work because she's not in danger very early. She can support evasion teams with a blind, she can be very physically bulky if you need her to, and she's got debuffs. I feel like she's a unit that has to go into the good category because her range just puts her a little bit protected from the meta in many scenarios. I've heard some people say that normal Victora was as good as Aranea. I completely disagree. Normal Victora is too squishy to be as good as Aranea. Even though she has great damage, she dies in a single hit, basically no matter what. And because of that, I think she's fantastic for manual play because of her charm and etc. you can use. But in manual play, she is actually quite meh. Personally, I would rate her as a nope for auto PvP. I just don't think she cuts it. But she is really solid for manual, and she jumps up to great, so it's different depending on how you play her. Generally though, unless she's a missile tank for you, she just won't have the survivability to do much. Vilric, entirely different case. He would be a great unit. The thing that holds him back right now is the fact that he is mainly oriented to fight physical attackers, and I feel like top tier PvP is typically a lot of magic users with Starlight L9 and whatnot using magic scaling attacks, which he does not resist very well. I think he will become a lot better when the meta switches potentially for more physical units. I've seen him with upwards of 1200 attack, 8000 HP, just hitting people very hard. I don't own him, I haven't been able to test him that much, but whenever I fight him, he's more of a threat than I anticipated. So I'll rate him in the good category right now. Valene, the Lightning Selection Quest unit, I wish she was good, but there's nothing in her kit to make me want to play her, so unfortunately, goes in the nope section. Why would you ever run somebody like her when there's Aranea in the game, or something like that? Varus is a fantastic magic duelist. I think he's been under the radar very much because when he was released, the timing was rough, not many players built him, but he's one of those units that can actually fight units like Starlight Elna head-on with their barrier and their attack with extra accuracy, and now that Wind is getting even stronger, I think he'll get a better rating. I'll put him as good because not a lot of players have tested him, and I haven't seen many evidence of him beating enemies, but I think he might be a secret great, and we just haven't seen a lot of him yet. I'm looking at my current tier list and the direction it's going, and I feel like I'm very hard on the best. So I will move Zazan into the best category. I did talk about his merits quite a bit, and I feel like the rating I gave him does not reflect this. So I'll move him there, and then I'll continue on. Tifa is a very interesting case. Really good damage, short range, courage, barrier breaks. She's got a lot to go for herself, and I think she is a better unit than to be in most scenarios unless you're banking in on your evasion. I think she's definitely good. She still sees plays, and she will alongside win teams a lot, but she's not that good that she can fit in rainbow teams, which is a little bit unfortunate. That's what prevents her from being great. Now, Titus, we don't see a lot of him anymore, and I think most players have forgotten how good he is. If you have a map which allows him to cast his haste on everybody early on, he is a great unit. He could even be the best unit for this map. But right now, lately, we've been getting mostly larger maps where it's really hard to pull that off, and his AI is a little bit wonky when it's about casting haste. So I think he only makes the good, but he's definitely not just a niche unit. He decreases defense, he can put enemies to sleep, he always does insane damage. Definitely a good one. Normal's turn. When he was released with his EX job, he was one of the first to have another source of slash resistance down. He could one-punch people left and right, and he has Drain Force, lots of different uses, but he dies in a single hit, and so he can't really compete. I'll have to put him in the nope section. I know some people might be sad about that, but it's my personal opinion. And then Ruin's turn. Unless he dodges, he also dies in a single hit. Yes, he hits in a larger diamond shape AoE and he can more easily one-punch people, but what use is that if you don't get to attack because you're just dead before? I honestly have not seen Runestern perform well ever since his EX release, so I'll put him there. It feels a little bit weird to give bad ratings to cost 100 units, but that's just my opinion on him. Started Elena, do I really need to talk about her? She is part of the best units. My initial impression upon her release was that she would not be great, and boy was I mistaken, she is definitely one of the best units out there. Now this one, Sweetheart Salir, I might be a strange call here, but she is at least a great unit. She could be best. She's got guaranteed hits, crazy damage, insane agility, and good survivability against physical attacks. The main thing holding her back is that currently top meta is magic oriented, so her barrier does not apply to most enemies. So I'm really hesitant between best and great. I think if you own her, you need to build her. She is extremely solid. I'll put her in great because she doesn't have all the different tools for survivability that the other best has, but she's definitely somewhere between. On to Rob. Yeah. I don't know. Why would you run Rob now that you have units like Startup Elena? In the future, there will be units like Violet from the Persona 5 collab, so I feel like he's just gotten outmatched by a lot of others. He used to be good upon his release. I've seen him do well in a lot of scenarios, but I just don't feel like he's holding up to the newer categories, so I'll have to nope him now. Winter Ramada, that's an immediate nope. There was never a moment where she was great, and yeah, just bye-bye. Now, Halloween Raryu, I've seen some interesting builds. He seems like a super fun unit, you can make him survive different ways, and he deals really good damage, and blah blah blah. But compare him to your Zazan, or Oberon, or Catone, or even Halloween Fred, I feel like he just doesn't hold up to all the others. If I put Winter Vinera in niche, then I have to put Halloween Raryu lower than her, in my opinion. Maybe I just haven't seen a lot of him. I know not many players have played him, but yeah, I haven't seen him impact the meta at all. I haven't seen him fight. I'll just have to rate him as a nope. Rain. He used to be a fantastic magic tank, and then basically all good magic attackers got 40%, 60% spirit penetration, and now his main way of damage mitigation is not as good as it used to be. I think now he's only a niche unit, because there's so few magic attackers that he can actually mitigate. Then Rafal. Seems like a very fun cost 80 unit. I am planning on EXing her because I think the combination of Assassin and Sniper seems fun to play, but does her kit have good synergy with itself? Does she have... yeah, she's an evasion unit, an ice element, which doesn't really have the cards and etc. to make a good evasion unit. I don't think she'll be fantastic. I think she's a nope, but you can build her for fun like I am, and that might work for you. Prompto. Solid unit, solid kit, really good abilities. I think he was outshined by the other Final Fantasy 15 units, but I still think he's a pretty damn good one, and I'll put him in good. When I fight an enemy Prompto, they often surprise me and kill my units before I have a chance to react, so I think people just undervalue him a little bit. Now Farm. What a fantastic unit. She removes guts and courage and decreases accuracy. She enables evasion teams. She's going to be great for water, and water will be greater and greater as we get Celes and Astoria and other future releases. I think she is a great unit now and could get even better. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of her because many players have slept on her, that her timing was extremely rough. I don't even own her myself, but whenever I fight her or I see videos of her performing in Arena, I find that she is a surprisingly good unit, and players should keep an eye out for her. Uldua. I love Uldua personally. I enjoy building crazy Drain Force builds where she's going to drain people for upwards of 10,000 damage, but let's be honest, she has never been a competitive unit and will likely never be, even with her second mastery ability coming sometime in the future. So she's a nope. Elde, quite interesting. When he gets his second mastery ability, his limit break will be a barrier that now costs TP and that he can apply several times, and at that point he's going to be a niche unit. For now though, without that, he's just a damage dealer, and there are many better damage dealers than him in the game, so he unfortunately also goes in the nope. Oberon, that's a best case unit. Initially, I wasn't sure how much damage exactly he would do, and then I saw that this kid one-punches even wind units. His damage is insane for a unit that can take 2 to 3 hits before going down, and he definitely competes at a high level. He's part of the reason why Earth remains relevant for a while. Now we'll have to see what wind does to him now that Joom is out there, but he's been impressing me so far. I'm not sure how I feel about Noctis. I thought he would be extremely dominant, and I found his damage lacking ever since he was released. Now, I just got my Noctis to 120. I'll be able to test him out a little bit more. But yeah, he seems to me like he's between great and good, actually. He is really good survivability, and his element is really solid, but I find that he just doesn't hold a candle to the other guys. Looking at the units I have in good, though, he is a little bit of a cut ahead of units like Titus and Tifa, so I'll put him into great, but it's going to be a tough call. Now Muraga. I still see this guy run, and I think he is the best of the selection quest units. He is incredibly efficient at what he does, and for a cost 80, fitting him in cost limited content can be actually quite solid. He will go into the good section. He has a lot to offer, and I think a lot of players haven't tried him or have slept on him. When I fight him, he usually surprises me. Now more. I'm just going to put her in great, and I will not look back. She could even be best. When I use her, she always impresses me. It's so easy to build her with upwards of 90 spirit with a magic barrier, and then she hits as hard as Black Rose Helena when she attacks. She is a super good unit. Kingmont, one of the best tanks. He is almost unrivaled in the utility that he has as a tank, and I think he's a better unit for general use than even Joom is. So yeah, definitely one of the best. Miranda sadly struggles with accuracy. When I see good water teams perform though lately, she is a part of them and she wins. I'll put her in niche unit. I think you need a specific setup and a specific team to make her work. She's definitely not a cookie cutter unit, but she can be good, and so she's niche. Now Minwoo. I don't know about you guys. I've read her kit on paper, and I have seen her in arena once, and I've never seen her again. So I'm just unable to rate her. She is one of those units that I have not seen. There is nothing in her kit that especially interests me, and she is not in the meta, so I'll give her a rating of nope right now, but that's because I don't know her, not because of any other reason. Then Medienna, she used to be dominant. Her EX job did nothing to keep her relevant to the meta, so I think she's still not going to see any play ever. I'm gonna put her there. Mashari though, she is very impressive with her EX job. I think she's currently at a niche rating. She can be good in the right setup, but there are other light units that are a little bit more dominant than she is. Watch out for her second mastery ability though. That is going to change the Mashari game, and she'll move to potentially great when that happens. And then Winter Mashari. Now, you guys might not have seen a lot of her because I haven't really seen players use her a lot, but those that have know that she is at least great. This unit has super good survivability, 9000 HP, 1400 attack if you build her right, one punches people by healing back, by being in the air, she's immune, she's got guaranteed hits, she's just fantastic. And if you can get your hand on her at some point, I think she's worth it. Now, Winter Luartha is also a one-shot machine. I've seen her and I've been using her in arena for a while, and she just one-punches everyone. On top of that, she increases accuracy, which is just a very important buff to have right now in competitive play, and she increases attack. She's got good synergy with other units. I think she'll be a great unit moving forward. Luel I've used a lot of, and either she's insane and wins the match by one-shotting everyone, or she dies before doing anything. She is weak to magical-based attack, she has low mobility, so usually she's not the one getting the first hit on the enemy team. I think she is at best a niche unit, even though in my heart she's definitely great, because I just love using her. Halloween Little Leela, well, right now, she's a little bit everywhere in the meta. She's got the heals, she's got the full life, she's got crazy mobility. For manual play, she is in the best section. But this is not only about manual play, so I'll have to put her in great. And feels like my great list has been increasing very quickly. I'll have to be careful about that. Summer Lilith. In theory, the idea of a missile attacker that can decrease missile resistance, immobilize people from far away, have both reflex and courage is insane. The thing is, she doesn't have great range, and that really holds her back in most scenarios. If you want to fight at a long distance, you just don't want to run her because she doesn't cut it, and if you want to fight at a short range, well, you don't need immobilize that much. So I find that she actually goes into the nope section. Even though I built her and thought she would be great, it just hasn't been that way for me. Now, Limier, I haven't seen a lot of, unfortunately. I just haven't, and I haven't built mine. But in theory, a unit that can hasten an AoE, quicken, deal damage, and or heal, it just has everything to at least be a good niche unit. So I'm going to put her there, but I haven't seen much evidence to back her. Lasswell has a very strange case for himself. He used to be great because Mirage allowed him to survive a hit that none others would, and now barriers don't mean that much if it's for a single attack because you're going to get chained or you're going to get a barrier break ability. So he doesn't survive as well, but he hits like a truck and he's accurate. I think he's at least a niche unit for ice teams that run slash-oriented teams. He can be the secret asset. If you have a tank taking hates, he is the kind of guy that deals enough damage to go through an entire enemy team, but there are very few scenarios where you want to run him. Lara. I did not know what to think of this girl. I didn't even do a review for her. I've seen her fight in arena several times and her damage has surprised me. She's got good evasion too, but if you can reliably get a hit on her, you just one-punch her. So I think she is a good unit in the right setup, and you absolutely need that right setup to make her work. Ideally, you know, Winter Victora and some other water stuff. Maybe when we get a water tank, she'll be a lot better, but eventually we'll get other water units like Astoria that will be better than Lara. The Mega Dark Selection Quest unit, I've seen some footage where he one-punches people left and right with good evasion, and then I've seen footage where he just dies before doing anything. In Global, I don't think I've seen a single one of him in arena or competitive scene, so I'll have to give him a nope rating just because there's no evidence backing that he could really be good. Then, Summer Catone, surprisingly great unit in manual, goes through the entire map, puts your team to sleep, and then the other guys cap on that, and you just lose. In Odo, I've also seen her do very well. I think she's one of those units that's in between good and great. If she gets her limit break at the right place, she is great, but the fact is she often dies before doing that because she's not that tanky, even though her setup has some slash resistance, etc. So she's only good in my opinion. Then Basic Catone is a great unit. She is borderline on best. If I was talking about manual play, she is definitely in the best category. But right now, what she's got is good mobility, her limit break that immobilizes people, Drain Force that keeps her very high in HP. If you can't one-punch her, she just goes back to full HP basically every turn. But there are a lot of maps in which she underperforms because Drain Force has a height range of 0, so she needs to be able to get on the same elevation as her enemies, otherwise she's kind of useless. Yeah, great unit overall still. Summer Kilfei is a strange case. I thought she would have all the tools to be a great unit, and then whenever I use her, she underperforms. Once in a while, she really surprises me, but the fact that she dies to physical attacks so easily limits the scope of what she can do. She's really good against other mages, she has really high damage, but she dies to physical attacks, which I guess you would expect from somebody in a bikini. I'll give her a good rating. I think she could be great or even best depending on your account and setup, but in most scenarios I've seen her, she has not been better than good. Normal Kilfei, I haven't seen anybody play her since she got her EX job. In theory, she can do a lot. She can heal, decrease magic resistance, deal damage, tank, she can do basically anything. So I think she's a good niche unit to have at least, but in competition play, I just haven't seen any evidence of her being good. On to Joom, fantastic tank, as a lot of players are going to discover or have already discovered. She has less utility than Kingmont, but more staying power. I think she deserves a slot in best because she single-handedly puts wind at the very high tier of the meta, and that has to be renowned somewhere. Now Jaiden, I'll have to have an unpopular opinion here. I think the only reason Jaiden is still competitive in the meta is because of Starlet Elena, and if we didn't have her, he would not see nearly as much play. I think he's got good damage, but there's little more than that to support him. He's not that great for the rest of your team. For manual play, he's a lot better, because ranged units are just very good in manual when you can maintain distance. Right now though, I'm hesitant. I'll put him at great because his damage is actually insane. But he is nowhere near the best category, at least. Now, let's talk about Ibarra. I have a very mitigated opinion on her. I've seen some footage, I've seen a lot of gameplay, I've fought her as often as I could to get a good idea, and she is a one-punch machine, right? If she hits you, you're dead. Basically, no matter who you are, unless you're Freyevia and you have your barrier up. Which is impressive. She does struggle with accuracy. I've seen some Players do the calculations, and even in a good setup, you'll get something like 70% accuracy, which in my opinion, on somebody who does, class matches where you need win streaks and etc., banking your win on a 70% chance just means you're going to lose 1 match out of 3, and it's bad. But that's my opinion. Still, a unit that can one-punch just about anyone if she gets to them deserves at least a rating of great, and that's what we're going to give her. She is not as good as the best, but I think she's pretty damn good. Now let's talk about Black Rose Helena, who has been one of the best units for a very long time and is now slowly falling backwards. Why is she falling backwards? She can ignore, magic resistance, she can decrease dark resistance, she can break barriers, she can decrease spirit. Nobody can survive her for a long time. But she dies very quickly now, because we have so many units that can kill her even through barrier, which was not the case when she was dominant. And so she's moved down from best. If I had done this 2 months ago, she would still be in best. Right now, I think she's only great, and as the meta keeps moving forward, maybe she'll go down further, but I think she'll stay great for a long time still. Regular Glaciella, I see her in manual play and double quicken teams, and she is a monster. But in auto play, I haven't really seen Glaciella pop up too much. It seems like she just doesn't have the survivability, and Lightning has people like Cloud that just loves one-shotting people if they're out of position, while Glaciella loves rushing forward and jumping in the middle of the enemy team. I think she's at best a niche unit right now. Could potentially be nope, but I still think with the kind of damage she has, she can be niche. Regalia Glaciella. Now that is a very impressive unit. I think for a cost 100, she is a little bit underwhelming. She's got good survivability and good damage, but I don't see her perform nearly as well. If I'm talking about Ibarra being inaccurate, Glaciella is inaccurate as well, and does not have the same type of damage as what Ibarra gets. So I'll have to rate her 1 category lower than I did rate Ibarra. Now, that's not saying if you own Glacial Regalia, you should not build her. I think in the right setup, she is fantastic, and she has surprised me and kicked my butt a couple times, but more often than not, if I'm targeting a team with her and I'm an evasion setup, or I'm a team that's designed to survive her hits, it works exactly as I planned. Gilgamesh is one of those manual, super great unit. He has Quicken, removes re-raise, does a lot, and in auto it's just so hard to make him work because either you turn off his entire kit and now he uses his actual barrier, or he uses abilities all out of order and you don't get really the performance you want out of him. I think for autoplay, he's a niche unit. He's really just used if you need an ice setup or if you need both Quicken and re-raise removal. But I think for manual play or for PvE, I know I'm not covering PvE too much, he moves at least a great. He is a very solid unit, just not that good for auto PvP because of his AI. Gargas, Wind Selection Quest unit. I've seen Mysidia play him and do well, and I've never seen another Gargas ever in my life. He's got super long range with his spells, which seemed really fun until Halloween Little Lila got the exact same thing with her EX job, in instant cast, with more damage, with better healing. Naturally, I mean, everybody can get Gargas, not everybody can get Halloween Little Lila, but still, she puts him at the nope rating because there's a unit that just does everything he does better. Now, Freyevia, fantastic magic tank, a personal favorite of mine. Players either put her at very high tier in their opinion or very low tier, and it's really hard. What makes the difference between a good Freyevia and a meh Freyevia, I think, is if you have the Ice Vision cards. You really need those to set her apart from the rest, and if you're fighting the right team, because she is not a versatile tank that can fight anyone. So depending on your fight, she can be best, right? In the right setup, against the right enemies, she is unbeatable. But there are very few of those right setups, and because of that, she only gets a rating of good. Halloween Frederica is a tough case. She has great evasion, she has decent damage, but overall her kit is rather underwhelming for the meta that we have right now. I think she can perform very, very well, but there's a reason we don't see a lot of her in high-level arena or guild battle compared to the other Earth options, so she is, at best, I think, a niche unit. I love playing her a lot, I think she's fantastic, but if I think of it objectively, there are better units out there. Normal Fred still has a lot of play in manual play because she's got one of the longest ranges, breaks barriers, and just ignores a lot of your missile resistance. She is really good for that. In arena or guild battle, though, I feel like we've gotten other lightning units that are more dominant and that see a lot more play. You're going to run Cloud and Ibarra and Charlotte and Nines before you would run your Frederica, and so right now I think she's more of a niche character. She definitely still is somewhere in the meta, but I don't see her a lot anymore. Now, Engelbert, where do you put somebody who is the best physical tank in the game, but doesn't do a lot more than that? I don't think he's as valuable for an account as Kingmont or Joom would be generally, but he's definitely not, low in the rating, because he just never dies, even in a rainbow team. I'm hesitant between great and good, but since I have Warrior of Light in the great category, and he tanks better than Warrior of Light, he just has less utility, I'll put him in great as well. I do think, though, when the meta advances, when we get more carries that use courage removal or have a lot more defense penetration, he will eventually fall out more than a lot of the other units in the great category. I have some difficulty with Summer Elsurel. She is a fantastic unit. If you're fighting physical attackers, she just goes around, one-punches them, she's got courage, she's got a barrier, she's got crazy damage, but she doesn't do nearly as well against units like Starlit Elena or other magical damage dealer because she dies and before doing much. I think in a water setup, she's fantastic. Her ability to enable her teammates and just generally benefit everyone on your team is really, really good. But I think she's a little bit worse than more in many scenarios because of the current composition of the meta, so I'll have to rate her as good. She could, depending on what Water gets in the future as other releases, move to great very easily though. What a tough call for Dwayne. He used to be one of the ultimate best units, right? Init hate, crazy damage, crazy bulk, and I think he's still really good, or at least he's still really great, honestly. He one-punches people left and right, he has a lot of value, but he's slowly falling out while we see other units that are just a little bit stronger get released once in a while. Corwell, solid unit for manual play. Really, really solid unit. You can use a Nightblade sub-job to just AP drain people when they close in on you, otherwise you're breaking barriers and hitting them from far away. Very accurate unit that could potentially fight Earth. His main issue is he just doesn't have the damage. He's going to be able to hit your Zazan or your Catone easily, but he's not going to be able to kill them in a single hit, and so I haven't seen him perform that well, actually. I'll put him at niche, where if you need an accurate ranged wind unit, he's your best call. But there are not many scenarios where you need an accurate ranged wind unit. Then Cloud, fantastic damage dealer. He is definitely great, borderlines on best actually. With his reflex and crazy damage and long range, I think he's a best unit, but I think he's one of those units that you have to be very careful when you set his AI. More often than not, when I'm fighting an enemy Cloud, they have the Ranger sub-job, and it's very easy to set my early turns, so I take a Barrage, he wastes his entire AP pool, and then he just loses. Cloud's best damage is triple slash and other, slash moves. Make sure yours does not waste his AP on something that is not as impactful for your team. Charlotte has been impressing me more and more as we go. She can tank basically any team very well, and with her in a team, I've seen Ibarra Cloud work insanely well. She by herself tanks long enough that your very powerful damage dealers just carry. She is definitely one of the best. Is she as versatile a tank as Kingmont or Joom? No, but as a magic tank, she is currently unrivaled, and the reason for that why she's better than Freya and Rain, is because she has many different ways to mitigate damage. She does have good spirit, she also has good resistances, she also has Protect and Shell, and because she stacks all those different sources of mitigation instead of just one, it's harder for units to penetrate them and still deal serious damage to her. On to Camillo. I've seen some play where Camillo was pretty damn impressive, but then again, look at the current light roster and think, when would I run Camillo over Starlit Elena or Summer Kelfey or Engelbert or Fina or Yuna? Yeah, so he's niche at best because of how much competition there is for the light element. Then Barret, you guys might find this weird, but Barret is a great unit. He has the damage, he has confusion, he just does a lot, and he's bulky as well. I know he doesn't see a lot of play, and that's because not many players have went for him, but whenever I see a Barret and I'm like, it's gonna be an easy win, this guy does a lot more than I expect him to, so I think he's just undervalued in general. Next up is Ayaka. I know some players have built her and they keep telling me how great she is, but I haven't seen much evidence of that. I think she's a support that can heal very well. She has a niche role as a stop resistance unit and stop removal unit, which makes her sure she's at least a niche unit. And then her great buffs, give you defense penetration and heals you back when you deal damage. But I don't think this is as valuable as somebody who can quicken and give you re-raise and etc. So I don't think she compares to the other support very well. She's just niche for that stop removal. Then Oron is still today a fantastic unit because of the damage he does and how hard it is to mitigate his damage. He breaks barrier, penetrates resistances, has guaranteed hits. You can't really get out of taking damage from Oron, and he's decently bulky. But now the latest releases have been very high damage units that could potentially one-punch him. I don't own Oron, so I haven't been able to test him, but I'm pretty sure he dies to an Oberon attack in a single hit. So I'm going to put him in the good category. He's not as good as the guys that are higher than there, but he's definitely still competitive. Next up is Aranea, and if you haven't seen her in a fight, you should try to fight her just to see how much damage she does. She basically hits cap on just about anybody but a tank, and then she's got guaranteed hits and many ways to mitigate resistances as well. Personally, I will rate her as best, and the reason being just anytime I've used her, she has impressed me very much. Now, is she the best unit to fight the meta right now with Starlit Elena? Not really, because they have good strike resistance and her guaranteed hit is a strike attack, but as we get different units at the top of the meta, I think Aranea will always be a threat of one-punching people. Now, Aerith. What a fantastic unit on paper. I wish she performed nearly as well when I used her. She heals and increases spirit, heals and increases defense, puts re-raise, has some decent damage if she needs to, and then she can haste and quicken. In manual, I wish I could play her, but fitting a cost 90 for a support is so difficult. And in Arena and other play, I just feel like she hasn't had the impact I thought she would. I'll have to rate her as niche. I wish she performed better for me, but I just haven't had evidence that demonstrates that she is better than this. Whisper, very interesting case as well. She is a tank that can outperform basically out all others in the right setup, but now almost all strong damage dealers have some means of penetrating slash resistance or magic resistance or any kind of resistance, and if she's not a resistance tank, she is outperformed by the others. She does have good survivability, protect, and shell, and she can have some decent defense now and decent HP as well. But the fact is, we have fantastic tanks for a lot of jobs, and Whisper, if she's not in her specific setup, is not that fantastic. I have to rate her as niche, and it breaks my heart to do so. Then moving on to 9S, this guy is still today one of the most impressive units, I think. He increases accuracy and attack and defense and spirit. He just increases survivability for everybody and makes sure they can hit, and then he can decrease pierce resistance or cancel ability activation, or he has a million different tools, and whenever I've used him, I've been very impressed by how tanky he is on top of all that. He's definitely a great unit, so yeah. There he goes. And then finally, Phoebe, original Wind Evasion Girl. I'm not sure what to think about her in the current meta anymore. I think she needs a lot of time-limited stuff to work well. I think I value Luartha higher than I value a unit like Phoebe. I also value Joom higher than I value a unit like Phoebe. But in the right setup, if you can't land a hit on Phoebe, she's going to win, and then she can be a fantastic duelist if you spec her for spirit or defense, because she can actually be pretty tanky too. I'll give her a good rating, but I think in the right setup, she can definitely be great as well. So this is it. It's my first time doing a tier list, and I'm very curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Naturally, I don't see every single fight that happens in War of the Visions, so I'm building this from my experience, trying to be as subjective as I can. Let me know your thoughts, and if there are different types of tier lists that you'd like to do. I would be very interested to do some by element perhaps, or by role, which I think would be a lot more precise, because right now, how do you really compare a tank with a damage dealer in War of the Visions, or units of different elements that ultimately will be played in different team comps? But this was it. Hopefully it was an interesting thing for you to watch. And then thank you so much, guys, and have a great rest of your day.